Hi there and welcome to the channel. My name is Daljit, and in the next couple of weeks I'm going to be featuring tips and tricks for the game Football Manager from the wider community. And I want to thank everybody who's sent in videos to help me out with this little project. And we're trying to put together a series of little shows that might help you out with the game, and I'm hoping to get content from as many creators as possible. And one of these creators, well, he has stopped for the time being, and I want to remind everybody about how good a content creator he is. Right? He's had he's had to take care of his family, and with COVID-19 he's had to prioritize certain things. He's taken a small little break from the game, and his name is Matthias. He is known as the Scribe on FM, and he has done some very good videos in the past. His knowledge of the game is actually quite good, and I've asked him to share some of his tips and tricks. And I want to remind everybody that he is still around. He may have taken a break, but I'm hoping he comes back very, very soon.
Hey everybody, Scribe here, and I'm excited to be a part of this whole tips video here that Bustthenet has put together. It's so much fun, and I am very happy to be asked to be part of it. Anyway, so I got a few tips for you guys today, things that I like to use and think about. The first thing I want to start off with here on the training screen is talking to players about training performance. Now, you guys all know that you get the prompt in your inbox where you see this best and worst performances. Now, the way I handle it, anybody that's in the best category, I honestly just leave alone for now, and I'll show you what I mean here in a second. Worst category, I always criticize, and a lot of times you'll get players that are just unhappy, that want to leave, and their training performance will be crap because of it. You criticize them, they'll just shrug it off or whatever, but I still like to do it because, you know, I'm that kind of guy. I want to let you know that you're kind of a jerk. Anyway, now the reason why I don't praise anybody here is because I have my own system on how to do praising. Now, morale is such a big part of Football Manager these days, and this is a great way. I always call it like a cheap, easy, dirty way to get a morale boost, and it lasts for quite a while. Now, one thing you may have noticed, if you praise your players too often, they'll get jaded and unhappy and complain, "Oh no, you're telling me how good I am. Stop it." Nobody does it. I don't know why that's a thing, but okay, fine. Maybe it's so that you don't game the mechanics too much, but anyway, it is what it is. And because of that, I have a little system that I like to do. So when we get to the first of the month, now you can do this twice a month, but I tend to just stick to once a month just in case, because I still talk to my players after matches and praise them and stuff like that, or criticize them to keep the morale as high as possible. What I do say the first of the month, part of my squad view, so you can see right here, there's a thing here called training rating. So I will click on that to sort that from highest to lowest. And now you can see everybody that's been training really, really well. Pablo Maffeo down here, he's at a 6.9, so he's outside of the green. My experience says everybody in the green you can praise, and they will be happy about it. So it's pretty straightforward. You see here, Benoit, we'll just go right-click, go to Speak About, go to Praise Player, Praise Training, take a moment that I'm very pleased with your training performances, and boom, his morale went from excellent to superb. And now you go down the entire list of players and do that. If you have players that are really, really bad in their training, maybe you tell them, hey, pick it up. But, you know, a 6.75 isn't great, but it's not like a 6.1 or 6.2 or a 5. So here what I do is basically just praise their training, and I sort it through the training rating. I highly, highly recommend to add training rating to your squad view, because then you can do this pretty quick and simple, and it's not going to take any time to sort and figure things out. So the next thing I want to kind of talk to you about, the next tip I have, it's attributes for Gigpressing. Now, Gigpressing or counterpressing is a very, very intense type of playing football in general and Football Manager. And I know some people say it's a little OP in FM, but you still need to have the right players to do it. Otherwise, they either get jaded or they break down in their press or they get tired, and you get massive performance drop-offs. After about the 70th minute, it really dips down. So I've got a few attributes, and I have a Gigpressing Attributes view to keep an eye on that I focus on. I've got the mental attributes that are key for me are bravery, determination, teamwork, and work rate. And then natural fitness and stamina are the most important physical ones. I add acceleration and pace just because you need to get after people, and you tend to play with a high line, and that's very important for your defensive players. But bravery, obviously how willing a player is to even go into a challenge and to attack someone and to press them. Determination, they just keep their levels up. Teamwork, they work as a team, which is very important also, and think about their team. And work rate, of course, that they actually do the work. Now these, I've seen players that have low teamwork and low work rate tend to drop off in the press, and so that opens up gaps for your opposition to play through. Natural fitness and stamina, it's pretty self-explanatory. If your players don't have stamina is important, but natural fitness trumps that even more. If you don't have players that tick those, you can't maintain the high level of intensity that you need for a proper gegenpressing system. And as you can see here on my Stuttgart side, a lot of yellows and a lot of greens and a lot of these attributes. Now you have a few that aren't, but these are goalkeepers, so I tend to ignore those. But if you go down here, you see there are a few guys that don't quite tick every box, and maybe I'm using them a little bit differently. But for the majority of players, all of these are above or well above average, and that's where you want to go. And the average as they relate to the respective league you're playing, but the higher the better. I mean, especially your physical attributes are even more important than your mental attributes, so you don't have massive performance drop-offs later on. So the next thing I want to talk to you guys about is the offside trap. I'm a huge advocate of using it. So use the offside trap. We'll ask players to adopt a defensive strategy where they seek to catch opposition forwards offside. So obviously this is very important for these 4 players. And for me, what's important is where my defensive line is sitting. So if it's standard or higher, I pretty much always play with an offside trap. If it's below standard, so lower or much lower, what's the point? You're sitting deep. No one's really trying to get behind you because they can't, because you already sit deep, so why try to catch them offside? At that point, I would remove it because it seems oddly redundant and pointless. It's not going to be very successful, and in fact, you could hurt yourself in doing that. But to use the offside trap properly, you do need players that tick certain attributes in defense. And we're going to look at Benoit here, Benoit Badiashile, who I recommend anybody to get. And the areas that I look at for a defender, be it central defender or fullback, acceleration, pace, of course, decisions, and positioning. Now you can see he's 12s on decision and positioning, at 19 though only, and then 14 pace, 13 acceleration. So these are above average attributes. So decisions, you need them to step up to spring the offside trap, and because of that, they need to be able to make good decisions. Positioning, so that they're positioned properly. Acceleration and pace are important because usually you're playing a little bit of a higher line. And because of that, your defenders need to be able to turn and go. If they're anything below 12 is suspect for me. If they're below that, then all too often the striker or winger that's coming at them will blow past them. Now, if they have the ability to turn and then accelerate and then the pace to run with them, you're less likely to run into trouble. But to spring the offside trap, decisions are very, very, very important. Without the right choices, both with and without the ball, as it says here, without making the right choices, you're not going to be able to spring the offside trap. And the other one, of course, is positioning, because he needs to be able to know where they need to position themselves also defensively. Now, in my saves, I tend to not have a ton of tackles, where I do tend to work with a lot of interceptions, which obviously positioning is very important. And if you're playing in a higher line, you tend to not do a lot of last-ditch tackling. Maybe you do a few more interceptions, and that's where positioning comes into effect. And also drawing the opposition to offside is relatively high because I try to get the right players in. So that's my recommendation on how to use the offside trap, where your defensive line needs to sit in that whole equation, and then the type of players. The other thing you may want to consider is if you have a player on one or more on cover, it can hurt the offside trap because he'll be sitting deeper. So naturally, he'll play more players onside because his role in a cover, if we go to cover here, will drop a little deeper and sweep up through balls behind the defensive line. So he's going to drop deeper. If you drop deeper rather than everybody else around you, there's a good chance that the offside trap will not be sprung. So those are a few things to keep in mind when it comes to the offside trap. So my final tip I want to leave you guys with is the winger role, attack or support duty. What fits what type of player? Now, we can all agree that the winger is very, very important. Whether he's playing deeper in the midfield or attacking or higher in the attacking midfield strata. There are certain attributes that are always key for every type of winger. Pace. Pace is something that just has to be there, and acceleration ideally as well, because they have to blow past their opposition defenders. Another thing that I like for all wingers is dribbling. They need to be able to dribble with the ball because they're going to be in one-on-one situations. Now, as far as a winger on support versus a winger on attack, some of it could just be down to your tactic and stuff like that, but I also look at my players and determine quickly who's more support, who's more attack. In a support duty, your winger is going to try to cross the ball more and attack the box less. Now, they still will. I've got plenty of wingers on support that score goals through late arrivals, but they're a little bit less direct. They're a little bit less goal hungry than one on attack, as you would expect. So what's the most important attribute for me for a winger on support? It's crossing. High crossing is extremely important. If they're not able to cross well, then having them on support duty to cross kind of doesn't make sense. But what do I do then with a winger whose crossing attribute isn't that high? If we look at Nicolas Gonzalez here, he has an 11. So he's not really a great supporting crosser of the ball, but he's been really good as a winger, specifically as an attacking winger, because he also has, he's got 11 finishing, and he was technically a striker. So from that striker role, lower crossing, but his finishing is there. That's kind of where I want them to be. Flair, okay, maybe off the ball for me is then more important because they also have to move off the ball, get in the right space, because you're asking them to be more striker-like from a wide position. And that's the one thing I really like about Nicolas Gonzalez in particular, is that he's a natural striker. So he naturally wants to score goals. He already knew kind of how to play on the right wing or left wing. As left-footed, I wanted a winger out there. I'm playing with two straight-up wingers. And he had a lot of good attributes. His crossing was a little bit down, so I decided to go with an attacking winger, see how he does. He did much better than as a striker. Sometimes you have to look at that. If somebody is a striker, doesn't have quite the striker attributes, so say his finishing, 11, that's fine, but for your guy who's supposed to put the ball in the back of the net regularly, you definitely want something higher than that. But all his other attributes are good enough that I decided to put him at a winger as attack, not support. With an 11 crossing, he's not going to get a lot of crosses into the man. Eric Thome, on the other hand, if we look at him, with a 15 crossing, he can definitely cross the ball well. And he also has curls ball, which is really nice. But he is definitely the type of player that can, cross both from there or on the right-hand side, depending on what it is. Obviously, if you want someone crossing the ball regularly, ideally on the right-hand side, right-footed, left-hand side, left-footed. But for me, the attribute that I really look at in terms of whether they're going to be attacking or supporting, I look at crossing versus finishing, see where their strengths are, and adjust accordingly. So there you have it. Those are all of my tips here. 4 quick tips to help you a little bit think about the game maybe a little bit differently. Maybe a lot of you already do everything that I suggested or gave a tip about, but maybe you can draw a few little things out of that to help you in your Football Manager 20 series, or save, better said, not series, maybe a series, moving forward. Until next time, I'm the Scribe, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks, Matthias, for those tips. And I am going to be one of those guys who intends to keep your channel bookmarked, and I'm waiting for you to come back. So, meanwhile, my prayers go out to you and your family over in Colorado. And this, guys, is my tip for Football Manager. The play out of defense instruction. Sometimes you may not want to use it, especially when your keeper isn't very good at passing the ball, because what it does is it affects your entire team. Your midfielders have to drop closer to your defensive line when the keeper plays the ball out. Now, what if your midfielders have got poor composure against the high press? They may get into trouble. They might lose the ball. So what you could do instead is tell your keeper to specifically pass it to another player. He can pass it to the target man. He can distribute it to the flanks. He can even pass it to the fullbacks. So this is an instruction you might want to think about the next time you play Football Manager. Well, in the next couple of weeks, we've got more content like this coming. We've got other content creators that we want to feature on the channel, including Fox in the Box and Strikeless.com. Yes, Guido on video. This is going to be a first. So you guys take care. Have a good one. I'll catch up with you soon. Bye-bye.